control when I panicked at the acid test. I wanna get better.
Hello and welcome to Muscatine Viewpoint. I'm your host, Chad Bishop, and we're happy that you've joined us. If you've tuned in September 27th at around 5:40, you're watching us live on MPW Digital TV, which is Muscatine Access Channel 9, and also on our YouTube channel. So we've posted on Facebook, or about to, that we're live. Come on over to our YouTube channel if you aren't already and you're watching live. We've got a chat line on there. I won't be able to read everything, but if you want to start a chat amongst yourselves, have at it, and also throw in a question or a correction. I don't always check my facts diligently, and we might enjoy your insight as well. So you, the folks at home, can be a part of the show if you're watching our live. If not, check out the rebroadcast on Channel 9, and that's archived on YouTube channel. Please subscribe to it and like us on Facebook. With those numbers, we can make more of an impact with the communication in our great town. Today's episode, we'll be talking about basically all things Muscatine at an at-large perspective. We're going to talk about our candidate. One of the candidates for at-large, Kelcey R. Brackett, is here, and a citizen named Jeff Armstrong is here. He's got some opinions, but I was opinionated citizen, I guess he's been called before. But long story short is we're going to introduce you to Kelcey and talk a little bit about Muscatine politics. So it's going to be an exciting episode, and we're happy to have both guests here. But before we get to that, I like to do a little ranting just to vent it, and I'm going to try one compliment and one comment. Because sometimes people complain that I complain too much, which if you can see the irony in complaining about me complaining, I think I'll leave that alone. But I've got a roofing rant, so put that roofing rant photo on. There were some people knocking on doors lately, and they were trying to convince me that you have a roofing rant? Oh, there we are. You've seen these guys around town. They're everywhere. Apparently, I've got hail damage. I didn't know about it. But my roof just happened to be 20 years old, so I was like, well, maybe I do have hail damage, quote unquote. Unfortunately, my insurance was a percentage, so it was going to cost me $5 grand. But what I did notice is that these roofing people are going around town, and you may or may not have roofing damage, but what a great deal if your roof's 20 years old and you convince the claims adjuster you've got roofing damage. For a $1,000 down deductible, you get a free roof, and I think that's what's happening. But unfortunately, all of your property taxes your homeowner's insurance have gone up at least $200 based on that because we're in a catastrophe zone now. So that's my roofing rant. I'm just sour grapes because I didn't get to jump on that bandwagon. And I know some of you legitimately did have hail damage, so I apologize to you that did. But every time you use your insurance, we all are paying for that. So please use some due diligence. And let's hope that we have some better weather. Now, that's my complaint, I guess. It's not really a complaint, it's just something I noticed. But also, we've got some photos that I found online from an anonymous source. Fireball Run was in town. What a great thing. I don't know who took these photos, but they're really nice. They came from town. This show's been on Channel 9 all week, but you can check out when it comes out. This episode's going to be on Amazon, I don't know, in a few months. They came through. I think both of our guests were down there. It was a great event, and we had some celebrities from Clerks, and this is a queen of something. Versailles, yep. Yeah. I think our guest is starting to recognize where I got these photos from, maybe not. But yeah, I mean, this is a big deal, and the town came out, sponsors came out, and Muscatine has got a great opportunity to expose itself to the nation in addition to this show. And we got one more photo because I think I know why they took this photo. There's Charlie Harper's bike. So I think this is a political statement about who our guest Kelcey is backing in this year's election. So thanks for that. I'm just kidding. Let's see. I got those off your Facebook page.
Right.
So let's introduce Kelcey Brackett here. Thanks for being involved with Fireball Run, and I think you're community-minded and appreciate that. And I was doing some research, and that's how I found those photos.
Sure. Yeah, I work at Stanley's, so
right there.
I was right outside. Went out, thought I'd check it out, and really enjoyed, seeing all the people come into town, raising awareness about the lost and missing kids. That's really what it's all about.
Yep,
with that,
I know.
With that particular event, which I'll be honest, I didn't know much about the show before they talked about it. I believe at one of the city council meetings, it was mentioned that it was going to be coming into town, and so I started doing a little, looked into it a little bit, and was glad to be able to see everybody, take part.
Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to get a brief background on you, but I want to make sure everybody knows we got Jeff, the opinionated citizen, over here. Sorry, what would you like us to call you? Because this is, if you haven't know Jeff, he's just a Muscatine resident, but you're keeping track of things, a lot of different areas. So that's why I invited you out, because you seem to know what you're talking about.
Well, let's keep the stage name opinionated, especially through this Saturday where I'll be in the dunk tank with Crossroads. And if you like what you hear, come and support so that I can win a trophy. And if you don't like what you hear, come and throw a ball at me so I can still win a trophy.
There you go.
And it's all for a good cause. Kelcey's going to be there as well. He's going to be manning the dunk tank all day long, and I've got my window from 2 to 3, so show up at 2 to 3.
Crossroads.
Crossroads.
So the more people might be offended by you, the more money you can raise for a good cause.
Exactly. It's all about trash talking.
And if your aim's not good, but you want to make sure he drops, just slip an extra donation. I can walk over, hit the button. We'll make sure he goes down.
Yep.
Well, good. I like how you guys are slipping in plugs too for things that's another point of the show, is let people know what ways they can help make the community better instead of complaining or whatever. Anybody can make the community better. It's not your responsibility or his. Now, let's do a little background. I know the answer to this, but where are you from and what brought you to Muscatine?
All right, so where I'm from, that's always a complicated question. So originally from Cedar Rapids, lived in Dubuque through high school. So it's kind of where I spent a lot of my youth. Then lived in Iowa City for quite some time after that, but came to Muscatine in 1998 to work for Stanley Consultants. Back when they had the Muscanet service. I don't know if you remember that. A lot of people, that was how they got their dial-up internet, the
Muscanet.
the whole modem sound that we all remember. And it was a pretty good place to work. I liked that quite a bit. MPW came along and said, hey, we want to do internet. And Stanley said, well, it's not really our key focus. And they made they came to an agreement there, and that service went off to be part of MPW and become the MockLink service, or expand the MockLink service. And after that, I thought, well, I'm going to look around and
you might about lost your job. Sounds like
not
really lost it, but you know what I mean. Like there was
less need for it because I'm not an engineer, and they already had a full IT department at the time. So, looking around at Stanley's, I thought, I need to look at something that I can do here in town. Okay. And I'd been in Muscatine for 5 years at that point, or roughly 5 years at that point. Really, came to love the town and decided I'm going to look around and see what else is needed here. So I ended up starting a business called Brackett Systems, and it was an IT consulting business. Did that, ran that for a number of years before selling that to another company in the area that was a little bit bigger than me, had a little deeper pockets, and was going to be able to expand it better. And so worked through that transition, went on to do other consulting work, and then now I find myself back at Stanley Consultants.
Wow.
So
full circle.
Yeah, full circle. I've been back at Stanley's for about 3.5 years now. Really enjoying that work. So
I love what you said, that you came here for a job, but then instead of moving out, you like Muscatine.
Oh yeah.
So that's a question I'll check off the list. I wasn't going to get to right away, but from an outside perspective, what are some things that you liked about Muscatine that kept you here back in 2003 or 4? Whatever?
Right around 2003. So. I like the small town feel. Like I said, I'm originally from Cedar Rapids, a little bigger town. There's some more amenities there, but you just don't have the closeness. I like to know my neighbors. And that's one of the things. I just recently moved, actually, about a year ago. Moved across town, and I'd been in the same house here in Muscatine for 14 years, and I knew, I know pretty much everybody in the neighborhood. I actually stop over and talk to them sometimes at this point, and it's one of the things I liked is not just in my neighborhood, but go all throughout town, people are friendly, and you can just stop and talk to people. And, we've got there's a lot of, contention lately with different things that are going on, and I understand that. But what I like is that I like to find the commonalities. What do I have in common with somebody? Jeff and I, we've been working on that. There's a lot of things that we disagree on, but we also find the things we agree on, and that works out really well. And that's a common thing I've seen here in town.
And you're comparing that to what city?
Originally I was from Cedar Rapids, like I said.
So you got a basis for this
a lot
comparison.
more anonymous in Cedar Rapids. Dubuque, is probably a closer approximation of Muscatine. Still a lot bigger. Iowa City, you know, it's a small town but with a ton of people, and you know, it's really an anonymous place.
Just to paraphrase what I think you're saying in a different way is like, you know, you can make a bigger splash in this pond. It's a little smaller, so a little ripple of effort can really make a huge difference in a smaller town because you know, it's just
I like the closeness.
Closeness of people, yeah. Okay, so one serious, right off the bat, I got a photo for this, but I heard one of your positions is that you used to be against the mullet. Can we see that photo?
Well, actually, there's a mullet photo if you dig deep enough.
Oh, well, so I didn't have that kind of free time today, but that's you back in the day with your anti-mullet senior photo.
Yeah, that was back in high school. But no, if you go back a few years before that, I was totally business up front, party in the back.
What are you that's a pretty nice photo. You might have had a career in modeling or something at that point, but you know, I suppose we all looked a little more mulletless back then.
Yeah, well, you know.
How do you stand on it now? Mullet or no mullet, or beard or no beard seems to be your new thing.
Well, yeah. You know, so there was a lot of concern. I was going to cut the beard off for the campaign, and I said, no, this is me. This is who I am right now, and I'm going to stick with it. So, no, you know, as far as hairstyles come and go. People, you know, I actually had a question about the current hairstyle I've got. You know, at my meet and greet, you know, there's a gentleman there that said, "Hey, what's with this haircut? This kind of looks like something we've seen on the news here lately." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, those alt-right folks, they've got this haircut." And I said, "Now,
alt-right,
they don't get to steal my haircut. I like this haircut.
Hey, we're not on Channel 9, Alex.
Whether it's good or not, I like it, and I'm going to stick with it. They don't get to take over my haircut, and you know, they shouldn't be able to take over anything for that matter."
Well, it looks like you transplanted what was on the side of your head to your beard a little bit. It's kind of cool, you know, like zzz, put it down there, and then you can just like push a button and it goes back up. I don't know why we're talking about your hair so much, but yeah, put it back to 7. There you go. Thank you to our viewer. We just got a message on our chat line that we're not on Channel 9, and so Alex is. Well, we're not going to talk about your hair all interview, but I think we're getting a feel for you as a person, though, by being candid about some of those things, because we do have some serious things to get through here. Why did you decide to run for city council? We got the background about some things, but that's a long-winded question, but just kind of give us a brief version of why you decided to run.
Well, I looked around at things that I thought I could do to make a difference. I've had a little bit of volunteer work that I've done in the past, not a whole lot. And I know there's a lot of other people that are heavily involved in volunteering. Mine was more focused on I did stuff around technology because that's kind of where I felt that I could help out. And in that, I started going to other meetings. You know, I started going to different meetings where some of the things were presented. There was, I don't know if you recall the organization. It was Muscatine Connect, which was a database of service organizations. And in working with that, you know, I ended up being introduced to a number of different people, and so it kind of got me thinking about the political side of things here in town. And so I started learning more about it, looking into it, but I didn't have a lot of time. I was raising kids, I was running a business, I was, you know, I really had no free time back then. And so then, as I got to the point where my kids got older, I've got one in college now, and I'm working in a job that doesn't require 90 hours a week, I started looking at it, and about 2 years ago, started going to as many of the meetings as I could to make sure that I understood what the actual roles of the different people in our local government were, and to look and see where I thought I could make a difference. And in doing that, while I was at those meetings, I'd see different decisions being made, but not really understand what brought those decisions about. So that's, started digging into it even more, because if you watch the council meetings, you'll see a vote will happen, and the majority of the time, now the last council meeting is not a good example of this, but the majority of the time there's a vote, everybody says yay or nay, and there's no discussion and they're done. And what you don't realize is that those things are really decided on if it's a standard vote. Those things are decided on near the beginning of the year when they go through the budget discussions. So, that was something that was a big, kind of an epiphany almost. I had no idea why things were not talked about.
Well, now I can answer that question too. A lot of times when somebody does ask questions or discusses about it long-winded, it's because they didn't do their homework ahead of time, and so they're using the meeting to flesh it all out, and that would take a 45-minute meeting and make every meeting 3 hours. So the question is, do we want them to do their research ahead of time and have their vote ready, or should they kind of flesh it out in front of the public so we can understand? Because it doesn't sound like, I agree with you. It's hard to kind of know where they're coming for if it's just like, any discussion? No, yes or no, and then we're kind of baffled.
And that's another thing too. You know, when you go into the council meetings, that you get an agenda. The agenda has, you know, the items that you're going to vote on. But what you don't realize is that you can go online. A lot of people don't realize anyway. You can go online, and if you look at the same agenda online, each one of the agenda items is a link. You can get details about everything that's being talked about that night, all the slides. And this one of the recent meetings, I kind of saw the result of this. There was a lot of people that looked confused because they were presenting information, and the council members were all, you know, okay, yeah, I see this on slide such and such and that type of thing, and the public was, you know, confused about what slide are we talking about? There's nothing on the screen, that type of thing. And so I think it would help if people realize that they can, you know, this information is out there. You know, there's a lot of people talk about what they don't know here in Muscatine, and the information is available, but I don't think it's publicized well enough.
Transparency is, as we speak, I'm working on the city's city council meetings, and so they're going to be on the internet, on YouTube for people that don't have MPW. So a lot of efforts made by the city council and administrator and the city staff in general to have these options so that we can really embrace social media as a way to communicate. And so, yeah, there's no more excuse of, because regardless of what you do, somebody's going to question, why did they do that? And there's usually a reason, if you want to dig far enough. I'm going to let Jeff jump in here on some of this stuff, but I want one quote. You said you're running in spite of the mayor-council situation, not because.
Correct.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's my question. Like, really? I mean, come on.
I made the decision to run before any of this controversy came up. You know, I had wanted to look into it quite some time before that even, but like I said, I really started doing my homework around 2 years ago. Now, we're at the point now where 2 years ago is about the time all that started, but basically, when it got to the point where we all realized how big of an issue it was becoming, I had to sit down and think, is this really the path I want to take?
So you almost changed your mind the other route as opposed to people that were jumping on. Not a whole lot of people are running, as many as I thought, but you almost changed your mind the other way?
I had to think about it.
Okay.
I wouldn't say I almost changed my mind, but I had to put serious consideration into whether or not I wanted to continue forward because it's, you know, it would affect my wife, it would affect my family, you know, and it could affect relationships at work when things are so contentious.
This current city council, it just doesn't look like it's a dream job at the moment, depending on what lens you're looking at, because in a public office, you have to be able to be criticized.
Right.
It's just kind of taken part of it. Is that kind of what you're meaning by that? Is knowing that you might be subject to?
Oh, I'm fine with being subject to that. Well, I'm talking about the severe polarization that we have, where you know, if you disagree with somebody, a lot of times people see that as you can't even get along.
Yeah.
You know, because you have a difference of opinion on something else. And I don't like that concept. I have so many people that I consider friends that we have very different political views. I don't filter my Facebook. You know, that's another good example. I don't live in a bubble. I like to think that, you know, I am willing to listen to other people. Now, in the end, it might not change my opinion at all. But at the same time, there's no reason not to be civil.
That's a good point. So should a politician, and what do you think about this? Should a politician, you can't listen to the people. The mayor, I had her on earlier, and she said the voice of the people. You know, 700 people, some amount voted for her. But how do you listen to all the people? Because they don't all agree.
Right. And
you can, okay, well, 800 said this, and 779 felt this way. I'll go with 800, but I just heard you say, you're listening, but at some point you still have to make a decision.
Exactly, and that's
is that what politicians should do, or how? What
you have to do is you need to look at the overall majority of opinion, but at the same time you need to take into account, you know, your experience, you know, your knowledge. So people get, you know, hopefully when people are elected, along with that comes life experience that will help guide them to make the right decisions. And you're never going to make everybody happy, and you have to be able to accept that as well. And look out for the best, you know, for the community.
So what is one thing we should change about our current city council government? I'm going to ask Jeff this as a concerned citizen, but you get your idea of brewing this too, because I know there's maybe more than one, but let's just kind of keep it simple. What's one thing that you wish we could change about our current setup?
As far as the code goes, or?
Yeah, just the city council, you know, it's not flawless, but you know, there's something kind of clash. Maybe it's a personality thing, but what one thing should we change about our current Muscatine government? Not a person or anything, just, you know, in general. Anything kind of come to mind?
No, actually, as coming from other towns that we've lived in and everything, coming here, there's a lot of involvement. I really appreciate how they have these public forums come together. There's always something going on about Mississippi Drive. There was a lot of public input into that, and it felt like it kind of drug on for a while, but it was working a process. It was making sure everybody's voice was heard, and sometimes even with the majority of what people wanted, they made some good choices. No, I find it very refreshing. That's a lot of the reason why we moved here, is the way it is currently set up.
Yeah, I mean, I liked how you answered that, because there's a lot more going right than there is that needs changed. In my opinion, they would take the whole show to talk about all the great things that are happening and all the great parts of the process. But like you said, there's a little contention, so I'm trying to address some of those things. Because you run for office to maintain it or to change it usually. Sometimes there's different motivations, like everything's fine, but I want to run for office. Or everything's not fine, I've got some great ideas of what I can change to make it better.
Right.
So what are your thoughts about things you might, your first few months, what kind of things might you find yourself pushing a little more aggressively than other issues?
Right now, I mean, there's a lot of projects going on right now, and I think that the city staff has done a good job of getting everything going in the right direction. And the thing is that the council has to give final approval on the different projects and what's going on there. So I want to make sure that the right decisions are made in regards to things like Mississippi Drive, because we're only in the first part of that project. There's still a number of things to come along. I know that we've pushed a number of pieces of that to phase 2, and hopefully they don't get pushed to phase 3 down the road, so that we can get that work done. There's a lot of planning to happen that needs to be planned with the riverfront project. And that, there's been public forum on that, or public, I suppose, presentation on that more than forum. But there's a lot of things to be discussed there. So those are some kind of big picture things that are going on right now that are important to keep an eye on. But as far as coming in to just make changes, no, I don't want to go in just to make changes. I want to go in and make sure that the ongoing decisions that are being made have the right look.
Okay, so there seems to be a little contentiousness between the mayor, city council, administrator situation.
Sure.
That's kind of why Channel 8 News comes down here. We've been to Des Moines. So it kind of seems like there's some middle ground, but some people kind of have a side.
Sure.
I would love to hear your thoughts on are you on a side? And you too, as just a general citizen, what's your opinion about this situation between the mayor and the council, her being impeached and now reinstated? I mean, it's a whole big mess. We can't talk about the whole thing, but are you on a side? Why or why not?
Short answer on that is, I tried to stay neutral on it.
Sure.
And that's not working out real well. Everybody wants to the candidates to pick a very distinct side in this. And I understand that, because the sides are so polarized. And like I said, that's one of the biggest issues we have right now, is people can't come to a middle ground on anything because they want so strongly to have somebody on their side or on the opposite side. And I was actually, this is right before I took the picture with Charlie's bike in the shot. I was actually standing there talking to Charlie, and he asked me, he said, is everybody coming up to you and wanting you to just pick a side on this and pick a side on that? And I said, yeah, they are, Charlie. And and I like Charlie, but as far as the question, I have been primarily in the mayor's camp on this for the most part. But what I wanted to make clear is I don't have all the details. The court has. I don't have all the details that there's tapes that haven't been released. Jeff and I have talked about this as well. There's tapes that haven't been released. There's information that's private that is, or not public anyway, that is still in the court's hands. And without having all of the details, it's a legal decision. The court needs to decide on it. There's some things that I think that I would have preferred to have seen happen differently. I would have preferred to see it go to district court in the beginning. That I don't think that the council should have held the hearing the way that they did. And I'll be real distinct on that. I don't think that should have happened that way. I think that was a waste of taxpayer dollars.
Well, it does seem to defy logic. However, 7, 8, a bunch of men with intellectual capabilities came to that decision for a reason that must be beyond us, because it was a waste. It was a waste of time, really. But I think it was a disclosed information that they couldn't do in any other way.
Right.
But it all turned into, of course, the vote is going to be. What do you think about that, Jeff? The fact that they had their own court about whether to impeach the mayor or not when we kind of already knew the answer? Was it just a big waste of time, or what, as a citizen, what came up for you?
I don't know for sure whether or not the council had a legal right to do what they did. I assume they did based on what I've seen so far. My opinion is that it wasn't the right thing to do. I don't think they should have gone through
motivated that.
I think politically it was a bad move.
What motivated them to do that? It's not like they're sitting, council's members are sitting around saying, let's waste a bunch of money, you know?
No.
So what's the motivation? I mean, we're just theories. We don't just have theories because we don't know.
Well, at the end of the day, we all agree we're trying to do what's best for Muscatine. And that was their motivation.
Yep.
You know, we're right or wrong, disagree or agree.
Okay, good point.
That is their motivation. They were looking at accusation after accusation, a lot of distraction, a lot of things taking us in this direction and that direction. And they are clearly focused on things like Mississippi Drive, the hotel, Grandview Drive, you know, everything from that to roundabouts. That's the focus. And those were things that were taking time, energy, resources away from that.
Yeah.
Now, whether you agree with that or not, I think that's pretty well documented. As far as where I'm at in the middle of this, at the end of the day, I'm kind of beyond what, you know, we've talked, and I'm tired of water under the bridge at this point. I'm not going to convince you who's right and wrong. You're not going to convince me. Same goes here. I mean, you said it yourself. There was like 500 comments on this most recent post, and nobody changed their position from the beginning, and it's the same group for the last year and a half.
Right.
What I'm looking at today is who's saying good news about Muscatine. And if you look at the most recent example, you know, Channel 8 comes out and they put out a couple of examples. They put out we're looking for information. We spent $1,000. We don't think we got our money's worth. And then there's the one where the Supreme Court, you know, the things, a detail of the case is going to the Supreme Court. Okay, two things happen. Microphone gets in front of you. What do? Well, on one side of the equation, it's continue the bad news, continue to muck up the history. I don't really care. On the other side, it's walk down the steps, don't say anything. My opinion, that's probably better, but there was still an opportunity lost to turn around in both cases, both sides, and say, this is what's going good in Muscatine.
Yeah.
You know, I'm getting tired of talking about the past. It's a legal issue now. It's beyond both of us, me, you know, whatever, and let's talk about the good news. Both of those were opportunities lost.
Yeah,
And
I agree with Jeff
and
on
both
that.
sides have control over that. There isn't anybody blocking anybody from doing that. They're
Right.
making bad choices, and they're letting bad news be the message of Muscatine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just odd to say that there's two sides when it's all the city government. I've never heard of a mayor and this council not being on the same side.
Right. Well,
Are we going
and
to change that with our vote? I'm trying to think about the potential. We're reshuffling the deck maybe, everybody, but Bynum is rerunning. It seems like we have an opportunity, but it's still going to be that if Broderson's reelected, we might still have this thing where there's a camp. You just called it a camp, which is.
Well, I would hope not. I mean, honestly, I really hope not, Chad. That whoever's elected as mayor, whether it's Charlie or Diana, I hope that they are able to work with the council. And if Diana's reelected, I'm hoping that the 4 council members that are not up for reelection right now see that as the citizens of Muscatine telling them they need to work with her.
Yeah.
You know, and that being said, I think that she needs to make sure and work with them as well. You know, I was not there for the private conversations that took place. I was not there, you know, so I don't have the information about what specifically took place, but I know that they feel like she didn't come to them. She feels like she was shut out, but you know, both sides feel like they were wrong from everything that they've said. And if I take everybody as telling me the truth, I think some miscommunication happened, and that's the biggest issue is miscommunication. I think if you look at it in hindsight, people, you know, on both sides of this issue would say, "Oh boy, I really wish we had done something different at that point in time because we could have avoided all of this." You know, and there's so many points that I look at this whole situation. I say, you know, boy, if the council had done something different that day, if Diana had done something that day, if you know the city administrator, if Greg had done something different that day, maybe none of this would be where we're at right now, and we would be able to just move forward and look at the great things that are going on in Muscatine. We've got the hotel, we've got potential for a container port, we've got Mississippi Drive and Grandview, we have upcoming project for the Riverfront Park. You know, there's all kinds of things going on. All kinds of great
I'm going to talk
things.
about a couple of those. Well, let's talk about a couple of those. I'll just kind of go back and forth, but you have an opinion about the Port Authority project. Now, I just met with Dave Gobin because he wanted to help me, have a better perspective of the community, and so that was awesome to get a chance. The community development director of Muscatine's really making a huge impact in Muscatine. You might not see it in real tangible ways, but there's a lot going on positively in Muscatine. You're not going to believe all the different projects going on, community members. But one of them is the Port Authority. I didn't really know what it was, but in a nutshell now, we want to have a shipping destination. So you can ship goods all the way up to St. Louis, and then there is no longer a real great shipping opportunity port-wise. So what if Muscatine has a port where we can ship things, and that's going to lead to the need for airport cargo opportunity and a big influx for the community. Where's it going to be at? Kent Feeds, why not? That's a great place. They're going to be one of the people that uses it. How much money is it going to take? Well, they've got a grant. I don't remember how much, but I think 100,000 is the number I'm remembering. 20,000 is being thrown in by Kent Feeds, apparently. So it's not the big Port Authority idea where these communities come in. It's this little kind of version of it where we get a port and we drive some things in there. That's my understanding, but you probably have some more.
Yeah, well, the dollar figures that you're tossing out there, that was just for the study that was done to determine whether or not, it was the port feasibility study. And so Port Authority is actually the term that is used for the type of management for the port. It's a multimodal container port is what it's called. And so you got most of that right there, where basically there is a convergence of barges and railroad and trucking, so that all of that can work together to further the shipping abilities of the area. So, and it would be a great thing for companies like GPC to be able to ship their product farther, wider, quicker, and that would be great for Muscatine.
And bring in other companies maybe, knowing that they've got this luxury.
Exactly. So it would also draw in other, the potential for other companies to come in, hire people locally, create more jobs, create more business for other local companies that already exist here. We have a lot of companies here in town that make products for other companies, and that's really all they do. And so it would give more opportunity for that as well. Now, I think where you were getting, as far as my opinion on it, is the management structure that I prefer at this point in time based on my knowledge up to this point. And that is what is called a port authority. And that's where you have two municipalities, like say Muscatine and Fruitland work together, and they become the management structure for the port. And what that does is that provides a different level of oversight. Typically you end up, from what I have read, what I understand about that, it provides a little bit more protection for the workers. You get better quality jobs out of it, that type of thing. So, and that's where my concern is. I want to see the local companies be able to make money. And right now, the location it is scheduled to be located at is a portion of it is owned by Kent, a portion of it's owned by the gravel company down there. I believe one of the Carvers owns some of the property down there. It's actually a mixture of properties just south of the GPC plant.
So wouldn't it be more expensive for the taxpayers using the model that you mentioned with the Port Authority?
The Port Authority allows for bonding and other the ability to raise money in different ways. So if it's a public-private partnership, the way that I think the other option that's being presented, then the taxpayers are still footing a lot of the bill.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
There's a lot of big successful ports out there that are Port Authority. They've been there for a long time. I've got a lot of experience with one down in St. Louis when we lived down there. Used to drive by it every day. It's very active. But recently there's been a lot of white elephant ports built. There's been a lot of cities, a lot of governments that build these ports, and they don't come, and they just sit there empty, and they go derelict. And so recently, over the last 10, 20 years or so, the trend has been for public funding for two reasons. One, they want to share that risk. They want some ownership in the ports to have public and private funding in it, and the federal funding is just not there anymore. I just read a study that was last year that talked about the amount of funding that's out there and the amount of ports that they project need to be built along just the Mississippi River is they can't do it without public funding anymore. Okay. And so that's why the trend is lately that a lot of them are privately, they call them landlord ports, is the term that was used. And so my biggest fear is, Port Authority works, it's tried and true. I kind of like tried and true. I like what works. I don't like the risk of a lot of these white elephant ports that have been built and they don't come. And my biggest fear for Muscatine is I don't think it'll get built if we launch it as a port authority. Now, someday it might grow big enough and all those things that, you know, because quite frankly, on the Kent side of things or the business side of things here, you know, maybe they won't be able to maintain it for 20, 30, 40 years or whatever. I don't know what that looks like that far out. But at least to get it started, in my opinion, it needs to be privately funded as it's proposed today, and or it won't get off the ground. It just won't. It's been 20 years, I guess, Muscatine's been talking about it, and it hasn't gotten off the ground yet.
Well, I think we'll kind of move on, but both had a chance to talk about that, and it seems like it's a great opportunity.
Either way, it's a great opportunity for Muscatine.
I agree with what he's saying as far as like, and just from talking to Dave, it seems like there's a plan in place to get this going in the nearer future to help our economy, as opposed to the more grandiose plan. But both are great ideas. Crime. There seems to be an uptick. I mean, our local media isn't the kind of media that will just make anything into a crime just to sell papers and whatnot. But there does seem to be a palpable increase in crime in our area. I noticed my personal take on it is there's a gun control issue that happened once there was a fear of guns being taken, that I think a lot of people bought guns, and now they're being used more often to shoot houses and whatnot. But that's one of the ones I hear about. But long story short is you have an opinion about crime and what you might or may not be able to do about it. So what are your thoughts about how to reduce crime in Muscatine?
On the gun control thing, I don't know that the issues that we're seeing right now have anything to do with gun control per se, because I'm going to guess, and I don't have the details on this. This truly is just a guess, which I don't like to do a whole lot. But I'm going to guess that the guns that are being used are probably illegal to begin with.
Okay.
If they're not, and I could be wrong on that. I haven't seen the reports on the guns themselves that are being used in these cases, or whether or not they've been recovered. I know our local law enforcement has done a great job of finding quickly in most of these cases the perpetrator, and so I commend them for that, absolutely. What I would like to see is to look at what is the real cause of this. What's causing these things to happen? What are the underlying cause of these symptoms? I don't see these as the root problem. I see these as a symptom of the problem. And I don't have all the answers here. That's why I would like to see the right professionals put together into a committee, commission, something along those lines, to try and determine what is causing this in our community. So law enforcement professional, mental health professional, public health professional. Somebody that works with impoverished people, that type of thing. Because a lot of these crimes are happening by and to people that are already suffering. That are by people that are causing problems, but to people that are already suffering or around them. It might be a targeted incident, but a stray bullet can go any direction. And if it's happening in a neighborhood where the people that live in that neighborhood are already suffering from other issues, what is a bullet coming through their door going to do to them? I mean,
so
to anybody for that matter, but still.
Forming an action team. This isn't a new idea by any means.
Right.
I know we've had these before, but kind of forming an action team with different perspectives. And one perspective you didn't mention, what about somebody that's been through the criminal justice system and that specific, wouldn't it be great insight to have that person in the panel?
Like a rehabilitated individual?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
As part of their...
Yeah, that was one of the other things too. I'd get lost track on that one. But yeah, absolutely. That is something that I think would be critical for that. Because then you can get a different, the mindset of what are the people that are perpetrating these crimes, what are they thinking about? And somebody that's gone through it, somebody that, sees the errors of their ways and has joined responsible society again, I think would be a great insight into that. Another thing too that I think that we need to reinvigorate and get more money into would be the Safe Streets program. I think that has done a lot for us in the past, and that would be something that I think that if that had additional community support, that might help out with the problem as well.
Do you have any thoughts on the cause? I mean, I gave you my little quick idea, but I don't think it's just Muscatine. It's just there's no community that's like we've got just the right amount of crime,
Right, and if you look at the Quad City news, you see a lot of this has been going on at a higher rate in the Quad Cities as well. And to me, it strikes me as probably it's drug related for the most part. There may be some gang activity in there, but what breeds those things is is lack of jobs, lack of income potential, housing inequality, things like that. People are already feeling down, and then you'll have some small, tiny subset of people that are in that situation that will turn to inappropriate actions, and then they prey on everyone else.
Okay, so pit bull, I'm just going to throw out some random things
Sure,
here.
sure.
Jeff helped me come up with some of these things for that. But pit bull ban, I don't have any thoughts on that, but you do. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know if you're too chicken to answer or what, but I use that question.
Oh, and the chickens too. So
yeah, what's the deal with the pit bull ban from your perspective?
All right, so my perspective, the pit bull ban, breed-specific legislation is not the most effective way to deal with aggressive dogs, because a lot of times what you end up with is over-reporting of pit bulls, because a lot of times they're not even pit bulls and they get reported that way, under-reporting of other types of dog bites, and you really are just shifting the problem around. So a better way to deal with it is to go after aggressive dogs instead, dogs that have created a problem, dogs that are, you don't tolerate too many incidents from any one given dog. Studies have shown that breed-specific legislation actually drives up dog bites, not drives them down. It's not just a matter of, well, labs bite more when there's no pit bulls because there's less pit bulls. It's like, no, there's more dog bites, period, more serious dog bites when breed-specific legislation takes place. Because these people still go out and they get, the type of people that have pit bulls that bite, that are, problem dogs, they're going to go get a different kind of dog. They're going to get the next bigger dog. They're going to get a rot. They're going to get, something else, and they're going to treat it just as bad as they treated their pit bull, and it's going to be just as mean, and it's going to be just as much of a problem. And so I don't think that we should have breed-specific legislation here. The other thing too is even if you agree with banning the pit bulls, the way that our code is written needs to be changed. So the code says that any dog that looks like a pit bull is banned from Muscatine.
Okay, yeah.
So
there's a lot to that.
Most people can't identify a pit bull when they see one. If you put it next to a dog with a square-shaped head, they're going to think they won't be able to tell the difference.
What's the deal with chickens? I don't know. You mentioned that. What's that? I don't know.
All right, so
just talk for a second.
So with chickens. So there's a group here in town, the Muscatine Egg Gatherers, that had proposed that like other communities near us, that we be able to have chickens in
the city.
In the city.
You want to have some chickens?
Limits. Right.
Put them in your backyard. Go for it.
Exactly.
Fresh eggs.
And what you do is people were concerned that, oh, what about the smell, or what about the noise, or what about this, or what about that? Well, going back to dogs, think about how many dogs do you hear barking? How many people really clean up all the mess from their dogs? That's a big issue here in town. Honestly, when I walk my dog, I have to pull my dog away from other people's dog messes on a regular basis.
Whenever I'm mowing, there's like a certain spot where I'm like, everything's fine, and all of a sudden you know that you've got, and it's like another 20 minutes of like dealing with the smell of the.
Right. So given that, looking at chickens, people don't understand. Chicken, if you properly care for a handful of birds, you're not going to have a bad smell. And what you do is you should police the issue when it happens. You don't just restrict it. I'm not for making laws that all they do is restrict people's freedoms. That makes no sense to me.
No big government.
Right, exactly. So what I would propose is to take it a step further than they did, because what they did was they said, okay, you can have up to, I think it was either 4 or 6. I don't remember because I don't agree with it anyway. Chickens in your yard as long as you have at least 2 acres.
Oh. A little space cushion for the smell and whatnot.
Right, and I don't know.
That's current code, right?
What's that?
The 2 acres is current code.
The 2 acres is current code. That's what they put into the code. It's 2 acres, and you can have X number of birds. And I don't know if you've looked at the map, the magic GIS map that we have
Not
here.
Lately.
It's and it's a great tool. You can find it really easy if you just type magic GIS. It'll pop right up in Google. And it's a wonderful tool. You can go around, you can look at all the properties in town, and it tells you the size of the properties. So, if you go around, you find one property that is 2 acres, and then you zoom out and you start looking at the properties that are all around it, and then you kind of scan around town. I would challenge somebody to find more than 7 or 8 properties in town that have 2 acres.
I was going to say, as a real estate agent, that should be one of the bullet points now. 2.1 acres, so chicken friendly.
Right.
There's only 7, but But you never know. Like you might want to have chickens someday. You know?
Well, and in cities like Minneapolis, have much less restriction on having.
So it's another way of saying you can't have chickens because there's not that many properties that qualify.
Exactly.
In the city.
Basically, what it's saying is you have to have enough money to buy a large enough property if you want to be able to have chickens. So it's kind of a class issue.
It's kind of like you're trying to have it both ways. You want to live in the city, but you also want to have a farm type atmosphere.
Now, having a couple of chickens in your backyard is not that big a deal.
I don't mind. Like you said, we got dogs doing their duties everywhere. What's some
Right.
chickens, some fresh eggs. I mean, a rooster.
Not a rooster. No, roosters are a good thing to keep.
Well, I wouldn't have to keep an alarm clock. Just
No, I'm not proposing roosters in town. Roosters are an issue all their own. Hens are fine. Roosters are loud and roosters are aggressive. They'd make me more nervous than a pit bull. So.
Well, you heard it here because what do you think about the? I don't know where to go with this rooster. Okay, we have 61% of the people that work in Muscatine. Oh, sorry, 61% live and work here. So that means a lot of people work here and then they drive out of here.
Right.
We want to change that because they're basically, it's like they're coming in, taking our money and then spending it in Davenport.
Yeah.
You know who you are. Well, no, you don't. You don't have our cable. You're up in Davenport.
Right.
Eating at the Steak and Shake, which we, okay.
Yeah, I don't even
But
get going
we
on
have-
Steak
Or
and Shake.
Arby's. Could be an Arby's too.
Arby's.
Yeah.
Now, Dave Gobin mentioned one thing, but he was this at Arby's, he said.
I'm not promoting any one particular fast food establishment, and I know I promised somebody that I would have my shake when I was on the show, but I finished it before I got in here, so sorry about that.
Just, it's a hot button issue, so you might want to stay away from that.
Yeah, I could have done without the whipped cream on top, though.
We want to have 30,000 people by 2030. Now, Muscatine hasn't grown in population since World War II. These are just quoting this, Dave. I mean, the population of the world is growing exponentially.
Right.
Muscatine, just we keep that same number, I think.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of ebb and flow. And those numbers came out of the housing study that was recently released. And,
how do we change that is the question.
a very good way to change that is utilization of our TIF dollars. That's tax increment financing. So what we do is when a business says, hey, I want to expand and I'm going to go ask the city, is there any way that you can help me with a little funding in some way, shape, or form? And one of the ways that the city can do that is it's called tax increment financing, where it basically provides a tax break, is the easiest way to explain it, to that business that puts money back in their pocket. And that will help them expand, it'll help them add infrastructure, things like that. But what it really should have tied to that is a requirement that they create jobs.
Okay.
And that's what those dollars are really intended for. And so along with that, what I would like to see is that those dollars be used to create jobs that are occupied by people that live in Muscatine. Now, whether that is people that already live here or whether it's people that move here, I think it is critical that the tax dollars of the people that already that live here now that are going into those funds that supports people in Muscatine. That those dollars don't just support the business, which is great. Like I love to see local business grow, but I don't want to see our tax dollars utilized to just help somebody grow a business that it expands outside of town.
Now, I think the answer to the how do we get people to live here and work here is a larger, more diverse population will create more diverse businesses. On any given social night, there'll be more. You have an event in Muscatine. There's just not enough people to support a certain kind of businesses. So as our population grows, the housing grows, the people's motivation to stay here grows, and then drive to Davenport maybe for shopping and work here. I think it should be flipped around a lot because there's a lot more reasons to live here in some ways than there are to work here. But
we're a reverse bedroom community.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people think about a bedroom community where it doesn't have a lot of jobs, but it has a whole lot of people that live there. And they would normally you would see people in the morning drive to Iowa City, drive to Davenport, drive up into the Quad Cities anywhere, drive to Burlington to go to work. But instead, we see people from all of those places coming into Muscatine.
Yeah.
And we need to turn that around. I
live right on the corner of 61 and University. But anyway, right at like 10 till 8, right when they're just about ready to be late for their job at H&I, you can't even cross the street because there's so many people just coming into town. And then obviously you can guess what happens on the end of the day.
Right.
Everybody's going that way. Not everybody. We're exaggerating a little bit, but I'm glad to hear that you have an idea.
We have a local business that's doing some things that I think is great along these lines that I know there's been a lot of controversy about it, and that's the hotel. So the hotel, they've got some great ideas. They have developed a program with MCC to have a culinary school or a hospitality school along those lines. And what that's going to do is that's going to help people here develop the skills that they need to work at the hotel.
Yeah.
It's also going to help them develop skills that they might need to work at one of the other hotels in the area or the restaurants in the area and that type of thing. And so then that is building upon our local citizens that might need a new skill set to get a different job and building on that. So then not only will they be useful to, valuable to the employers here locally, but they might be able to take that skill set that they learned here because of the investments made by this new hotel and go work in Davenport, but live here. Go work in Iowa City, but live here.
Do you see
bring those earnings back to Muscatine instead of the other way around?
Yeah, and the hotel's doing some clever things. All the corporations are they reached out to make sure they have their events and their meetings here at so we're going to have a nice influx. Instead of having their conventions in Davenport, now they're going to come to Muscatine. But some people have a problem with the hotel. I'm glad to hear that you are positive about it. But
yeah, I think it's a great thing.
What's the downside of this? Is I was so confused. I had to have somebody on and explain to me what could possibly be the downside of this.
I don't know. What did they say the downside was? I'll be honest.
There's a Chinese conspiracy theory that we're going to be overrun, and that it was paid by China, entirely by we're going to have a Chinatown. I mean, you asked. I'm just telling you. There's a lot of random reasons because I can't think of any reason except for maybe some other hotels that might be a little bit of time before we kind of recoup. I know that we need a hotel, Holiday Inn Express, coming right by the Palms to service the thousands of people that come to the soccer complex and the ballparks. Right there in the Palms would be a great place for a hotel because they wouldn't, have to drive quite as far. But having said that, I can't think of any downside to having this hotel. It's
no, I can't think.
But there is a controversial situation.
The controversy really comes out of the same thing I talked about earlier, which is miscommunication, misunderstanding, and confusion about the details.
Like 81 new jobs, for example, right off the bat.
That's
amazing.
A lot. Yeah, that's amazing.
And when people come to events here, like I do a film festival, when they come to that hotel and we have the event there, and then we've got all these 4 new restaurants moving in downtown, by the way, based on this, some really great ones. They're going to come back.
Right.
I mean, not that it's bad out there by the mall and whatnot, but for that quaint Muscatine feeling, it's good to have a nice downtown.
Yeah.
feel.
Well, and downtown has redeveloped quite a bit, and I've been in Muscatine, like I said before, since 1998, and I did not have a lot of experience with Muscatine prior to that. But when I moved to town, I remember the downtown going through since that time has gone through quite a few stages where it was completely full and almost completely empty at different points in time in the storefronts down there. And right now we've got a good variety. Creations by Oz has got a lot of good stuff going on down there with that store and the renovations they've made. That space is gorgeous in there right now. And
well,
that's the type of thing I really like to see in the area.
My mom works down there, and she said that they were a little upset because they take the 3-hour parking and make it 2-hour. And that's the kind of decisions you as a city council member would be deciding. And it's parking. I mean, we can't ever stop talking about parking.
No.
But she was saying that if you go to shop down there, by the time you get to Creations by Oz and all these places, it takes longer than 2 hours, so it's discouraging out-of-town visitors. But then again, if you move it from 3 hours, anyway, do you have any thoughts on parking?
I do have some thoughts on the parking. Going back to when I first moved to town. So parking's been an issue for as long as I can remember.
Always will.
Being in Muscatine. I was actually interviewed by one of the news channels right when I first came to Muscatine. I'm walking down the street, heading down to the riverfront to where I park, when I'm at Stanley's. Although right now I've been kind of parking not at the riverfront. It's a closer walk to go walk up the hill or walk to one of the other open spots on the street. But I'm heading down to the riverfront, person walks up, camera, microphone. What do you think about the current parking controversy? and I'm like, oh my gosh, what controversy? They said, the meters are no longer going to take pennies.
Oh.
And I looked at him and I said, the meters take pennies? I'm like, well, I better hurry up and use the rest of mine before. No, so we've had parking issues of different sorts this whole, for as long as I can remember being here. And with the question that you asked, there's a lot of different options we could have. Right now, I think that all the construction is making things much worse than normal, and it's a growing pain. It'll be over before too long. Things will get back to normal. Now, some changes that, and Jeff and I were kind of talking about this before we started tonight, and we've had some other conversations about the parking off and on because, we both get involved in the conversations on Facebook. We've discussed it, and I was at the council meeting recently where it was discussed pretty heavily. And, my personal opinion is that I think that it would be good to change the meters on the side streets to 10-hour meters, make those easy to park at for lengthy periods of time. And, I like Jeff's idea of I think it was 2 hours, was it 2 or 3 hours was what you were suggesting on that.
Mine was 3 hours across all of Second Street.
3 hours just down Second Street, 3 hours once a day. And so that would free up the spots for people that needed to come in, do something quick, for essentially, and get what they needed to get, jump back in their car and head out, keep things flowing. And then if you're going to be down there for a lengthy period of time, at most you'd probably have to walk a block. Yeah. So it's much closer. You take an example. You go to Walmart, you get there at a time of day when it's not exactly slow. Parking lot might be kind of full. You're going to walk farther from a parking spot in Walmart than you are downtown.
Here's how Muscatine residents, you can make the world a better place, because the Walmart analogy is a great one. All the Walmart employees have to park far away to let their customers have first dibs. So Muscatine residents, park down by the riverfront, let the visitors have some of these spots, let the people that are going shopping. If you're not going to spend some money downtown, go for a walk. It's healthy, it's a great way to prevent many cancers, it's great for cholesterol, heart disease, it's preventative of strokes and whatnot. So park far away, do your part for Muscatine by parking as far as humanly possible from wherever it is you're trying to go.
And I think somebody made a suggestion to make some of the parking blue zone parking.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And I think
get
that's
your
a great
workout
idea.
in. I mean, I don't know if you live out by Central Middle School, just walk in, get your workout in right there.
Well, and
ride your bike from Fruitland.
Leave the closer spots for people that actually.
I mean, I'm being serious
in
some ways. Like I never thought about my civic duty to be not try to muck up those precious spots that are on Second Street.
Right.
Just kind of, put a little chip on your shoulder and be proud. Maybe we'll give people free T-shirts. Hey, I parked. I allowed. Okay, we'll change the subject.
I'm gonna write that one down. Free T-shirts.
There's some contention about. I never know what I'm talking about here. But do you have any affiliation with like a union or PAC funding? Like, how's your campaign funded? Like, how do you get money?
My campaign currently is funded entirely by individuals.
Okay, so how did that come about?
I asked individuals to write me a check, and they did.
It's not like thousands of dollars or anything.
No,
you need some yard signs. You got a Facebook page.
Yep. So,
but people who bring it up, I don't know who. That's an exaggeration. I must have to name the names, but there's just always this kind of this weird union allegation conspiracy.
Yeah. No, I grew up in a household that my father was a union member for 20 years. He was a union steward for a number of years. My wife's in a union. I am endorsed by some unions. However, I have not accepted any union dollars.
Okay.
I'm not saying that I won't, because they have every right to contribute. Yeah. But at this point in time, I've asked them not to yet. I've not accepted any checks.
Do you have any thoughts on that or any questions? Do you have any? We're about wrapping up. I had a few more, but do you have any questions for Kelcey or any kind of things that have been gnawing at you while you're sitting over there?
Well, agree with you on pit bulls. I think we ought to focus on the behaviors, not the breed. Agree with you on chickens. For us, I think it's a great way to teach my daughter some of the farm character and everything that I grew up with working on a farm. Also for our bed and breakfast, it would be neat for the kids that come to visit to, maybe learn some of that too. As far as crime, the root cause is hope. Jobs and all those things come from hope. Beating the drum around about the great things that are happening in Muscatine, it all generates hope. Yeah. And I think, and also people not living in Muscatine, same thing. We were attracted here because of hope, because of the opportunity. Because at that point in time, there was a lot of good news coming about the Mississippi Drive and the hotel on its way and all these things. And that news isn't getting out there. I think we're already doing a lot of great things to attract people to live here in town. We're making the downtown more walkable. It's backfilled a lot in the last 2 years. When we moved here, there was the New York New York store across the street from us, and nothing on that block. And now it's pretty much filled in, and there's only about one or two empty ones along Second Street. But nobody's hearing that message. Nobody's hearing that message. And to me, both those things are all about hope. Kids aren't going to get into drugs if they have hope. Kids are going to go try and contribute to the community if they think they're going to be rewarded for that. And right now that message is not happening, although those things are happening.
Yeah, and if you're a parent and your you're not economically strapped, you're able to, be a better role model for your children too. So yeah.
Well,
no, you don't have to. I mean, people
Even
that are no.
Is that what hope? Is that what you guys mean by hope? I guess.
But even the idea about, if you've got hope and you've got energy, and you're looking for something for your kids to do, I mean, one father here in town, I pointed out on Facebook, took his kids to Weed Park and cleaned up Weed Park for the day, and they had a blast.
Okay, so well-being,
and just that creativity flows from hope. All these things happen with hope, and those things are happening again in Muscatine. There's a lot of great things happening in Muscatine. That message is getting blocked. Going right back to the original question you asked me about, both sides need to start getting that message out, and we need to keep that squabble. When my parents were getting divorced, they kept it to themselves. They informed me when I needed to be informed, and we moved on. And at the end of the day, they didn't suck me into it. And we need to quit getting that noise out there on the news.
We're wrapping up here. I want to give you the last word. I didn't get to a couple of them that I was a little nervous about, but maybe we'll have you back because there is some. But who are you voting for mayor? I was just curious. And you have any thoughts on that? Oh, did I catch you? Well, I think he's got a.
Well, let me say one thing.
Okay. Because I want.
I've been very vocal about my opinion about Diana's performance.
Okay.
It's not personal. It's all about performance. I don't know Diana. I don't know. In fact, we've got a lot in common. She's a Christian. I'm a Christian. She's very passionate about Muscatine. I'm very passionate about Muscatine. I make a lot of mistakes, and well, in my opinion, she does too. And so we have a lot in common at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, we got to make a choice. I think we need a fresh start, and I think we need Charlie Harper.
Okay. And you kind of mentioned that you were attracted to Broderson camp in general, or
yeah,
what's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is I think Charlie's a fine guy. I wouldn't have a problem with him being elected, but at this point I'm supporting Diana.
Okay. Yeah, you kind of made that. Do you have a sign in your yard?
No, I don't.
You have your own sign in there.
Actually, I'm picking those up in the morning. So if you'd like one, just let me know your address. I'll be happy to drop it off. But I'll be picking those up in the morning. No, it's all right. Andy Foster offered to put a Nat Big sign in my yard.
That's kind of awkward, though. It's like, no thanks, dude. I'm fine. I don't need your sign.
No, but
no, I'm glad to hear that because I haven't seen yours yet.
Yeah. No.
What color are they?
They are green.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I think Dennison's got a. There's okay. I'm gonna let that. I'll ask him when he's there.
I like green. It was the color that I used when I had my business. So
yeah,
kind of
cool.
Go back to that again. Yep. So.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show, Jeff, and you're helping us kind of fuel this. And I'm gonna maybe have we're having a debate October 10th, a formal one.
Right.
Probably won't get some of these questions. It'll be a little more formalized, but. Maybe we'll have people back, the outlaw-large candidates especially. But I think I got to know you real well, and so that's what's important. If people watch this and tune in, they're going to know all about you.
And if people are on Facebook, they're welcome to go to my Facebook page, my campaign page. I've got my contact information on there, phone number, email, whatever. I'll take phone calls. I'll take email.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience about it? Right there's your camera.
Right.
Yep, go ahead.
Basically, just, I look for the best in Muscatine. I want to help promote the best in Muscatine, and so hopefully I'll have your vote in November. And if you've got any questions in the meantime, feel free to give me a call, email. If you see me walking down the street, stop me. I'll answer whatever questions you have. Thank you.
Okay, well said. Well, that wraps it up for this week. We will have a couple more candidates next week. Believe Carrie Dennison's going to be here, and who else is here? Do we have that back? Forget who else. We have two candidates going. Well, I shouldn't even say anything then. But we also every candidate has been offered to be out here, and the mayor and Charlie will be out here. Only one candidate denied coming out here, so you're going to get a chance to learn about all the candidates by tuning in, and so. Just keep watching and let us know how we can do. And feel free to call, comment, be on the show. This is your show, not ours. So thanks to our guests, and we'll see you next week.
Hey, I hear the voice of the preacher from the back room, calling my name and I follow just to find you. I trace the faith to a broken down television and put on the weather. And I've trained myself to give up on the past.